I built the thing that's making 71% of my company's profit, and now the man who never reviewed a single line of my code wants his name on it. It's not a startup. It's a mid-sized SaaS company that sells analytics dashboards for enterprise clients, the kind that brags about customer insight pipelines and AI-driven churn prediction. But in reality, most of what we ship is legacy junk with a fresh coat of React. When I joined 3 years ago as a back-end engineer, the place was running on fumes, bloated roadmap, quarterly fire drills, the same executives cycling through buzzwords like seasons. I wasn't supposed to build anything new. My job was to maintain Data Hub, our core analytics service. But after fixing the same performance bug for the fourth quarter in a row, I got curious. I started tracking how clients were actually using our API. Turns out, they didn't need half the features we bragged about. What they wanted was visibility into their own usage. They were guessing how much they owed us. So I built a tiny script to show live data consumption, first for myself, then for a test customer. That was the spark. For 3 months, I worked after hours, quietly, building a metered billing system inside our infrastructure, a sidecar service that turned static contracts into usage-based revenue. I called it Atlas. It was small, efficient, invisible. It didn't need marketing slides, it just worked. The first time Atlas billed a customer automatically, I was terrified. We made an extra last $200 overnight just from accurate metering. I kept it quiet, then rolled it out to 3 more clients. Same result. Revenue jumped, churn dipped. When our CFO emailed the team saying, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," I knew I'd stumbled on something big. Then came the dashboard. I built a simple front end to visualize usage per account. Color-coded graphs, projected billing, anomaly alerts. I pushed it to staging. One of our sales guys accidentally sent the link to a client, and within 48 hours that client upgraded their plan. The CFO noticed again. "Let's make this standard," she said. Suddenly everyone wanted to know who built it, and that's when he appeared. Our VP of Product, Evan. The same guy who'd once shot down this idea in a meeting saying, "We don't need another billing experiment. We need stability." He hadn't spoken to me in months. Now he was walking into my Slack DMs like we were old friends. "Hey man, amazing stuff you did with Atlas. Let's sync on how to scale this." I should have known what that meant. By the next week, the company newsletter went out. Exciting innovation from our product division, introducing real-time usage analytics, led by VP Evan Kay and the data strategy team. My name wasn't anywhere. Neither was anyone from engineering. Still, I didn't want to start a war. I thought maybe I could fix it by staying rational, by showing metrics. I pulled together a deck, before and after graphs, revenue deltas, latency charts, churn curves, proof of what Atlas was doing. I even added timestamps from Git commits and billing statements. I sent it to Evan with a polite note. "Would appreciate being included in next comms update. Atlas is still under engineering's repo and my oversight." He didn't reply. 2 days later, my Jira epics disappeared. Everything under Atlas was reassigned to Evan Product. The Slack channel was renamed Betrayals Product Usage Analytics. My Git access stayed, for now, but the message was clear. That Friday, we had a company-wide town hall. Evan presented Atlas like it was his brainchild. He said things like, "When my team and I conceptualized usage-based pricing," I sat in the back of the room, pretending to take notes, while every slide was a screenshot of my dashboard. Afterwards, people patted him on the back. One of the designers whispered to me, "Wasn't that your thing?" I nodded once, said nothing. That night I didn't go home. I stayed at the office until sunrise, pulling every record I could find. Commit logs, Confluence drafts, approval chains, email threads from the CFO. Every piece of evidence that tied Atlas to me. I wasn't planning revenge, not yet. I just wanted truth somewhere safe, in case things went bad. On Monday morning, I got a calendar invite. Board review, Atlas ROI presentation, product owner Evan K. My name was listed as support engineer. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't being ignored, I was being erased. I stared at that invite for a full minute. Then I opened a terminal, typed a single command, and created a hidden flag inside Atlas's codebase. Something small, harmless, invisible to anyone who didn't know it was there. A tool I'd built for internal compliance, provenance mode, a feature that, when activated, overlays every component with its commit author and timestamp. If Evan wanted to take credit for Atlas in front of the board, I'd make sure the board knew exactly who built every single line. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I just hit save, pushed the commit, and closed my laptop. The war hadn't started, but I knew exactly how it would end. The Monday after the invite, the office felt colder. Not physically. The AC was the same as always. But the way people looked at me had changed, pity mixed with silence. A few engineers knew what happened, but no one wanted to be next in line for erasure. I couldn't blame them. Around here, power didn't come from building things. It came from proximity, and Evan had proximity to the board. Atlas kept growing. Revenue doubled again. Enterprise renewals that had been maybe for 6 months turned into signed. The CFO mentioned it in a meeting. Atlas alone accounts for 71% of new profit this quarter. The room applauded. Evan smiled. I didn't. He called me into his office later that day. Glass walls, white furniture, the kind of setup meant to look transparent, but built to isolate. Listen, he said, leaning back in his chair, voice dripping with that fake empathy they teach at leadership seminars. I know this feels unfair. You built amazing stuff, no question. But this is bigger than one engineer. The board needs one face for the product, and that's me. It's optics. You'll get your recognition in due time. I stared at him. So you're saying the work I did is now your story? He smiled without blinking. It's the company's story. You're part of it. That's when I realized he wasn't lying. He actually believed it. Within days, Atlas's Jira board was rewritten. My tickets were renamed, comments deleted. In Confluence, the engineering proposal page I'd written had been cloned. New author listed, Evan K. Even the internal Slack channel changed tone. My messages got fewer replies. Marketing started tagging Evan for questions about integration I'd architected. He began scheduling mentorship sessions. Translation, theft disguised as guidance. He'd call me into a room, ask me to walk him through the rationale, and then recite my answers later in meetings as his own insights. He'd even copy my phrasing, the same words I'd used explaining the metering logic. The first time I heard him say Atlas's multi-tenant isolation is its secret advantage, my jaw clenched so tight my headset cracked. Still, I played along, because I'd started collecting. Git logs, internal emails, change approvals, billing reports, all time-stamped. Every merge showed my name, every financial uplift tied to commits I authored. I exported everything to an encrypted drive labeled coffee receipts. Paranoia isn't paranoia when they really are out to take everything. I wasn't alone, though. People notice patterns even when they pretend not to. Maya, one of our designers, pinged me late one night. They're editing your name out of the product deck. Should I send you the draft? She did. Evan had rewritten my section into third person, referring to himself as the lead architect overseeing data innovation. Then Alex from Sales Engineering sent me a recording, a client call where Evan promised real-time cost forecasting, something I'd explicitly said we couldn't ship yet. He's overcommitting again, Alex whispered. You might want this for later. Later. Everyone said that word like it was radioactive. By week's end, Evan scheduled a one-on-one with me. The invite subject line, performance check-in. That phrase hits different when you know what it means. It means they're building a paper trail. It means your achievements are about to be reframed as issues with collaboration. I walked in prepared. He started soft. You've been incredible, but I'm concerned about communication gaps. You're not aligning with leadership priorities. Some teammates say you're territorial. I let him talk. He wanted me defensive. Instead, I opened my laptop, mirrored it to the TV, and said, "Let's align then." On the screen, a Git graph. Blue lines, my commits. Red, his. There were no red lines. He blinked. What is this supposed to? These are the contributions to Atlas. You can see authorship, timestamps, approvals, and billing deltas. Every spike in profit aligns with a merge I pushed. Every delay aligns with your requested feature pivots. His jaw tightened. This isn't productive. No, I said, but it's accurate. He shut his laptop. You need to be careful. Optics matter. The board doesn't want to see engineers acting out of line. That was his way of saying shut up or you're done. By the next morning, I was locked out of the Atlas Slack channel. My admin privileges in Jira were revoked. HR pinged me to clarify my role boundaries, but I wasn't panicking, because I knew what was coming. A board review was set for Friday. Evan planned to demo Atlas live, using a branch I'd finished hardening the night before. He didn't know that inside that branch, buried deep in the compliance layer, lived the switch I'd built weeks earlier. The one that showed commit provenance, and if he pushed that build to production, he'd trigger it himself. For 3 nights, I barely slept. Every conversation felt wired, every email rehearsed. Maya whispered, "You sure this is safe?" I told her yes, even though I wasn't. Friday morning arrived. The whole company was on edge. Evan was pacing near the boardroom, straightening his tie like a man about to receive applause. I watched through the glass as he set up his slides. The CFO, the audit chair, the CEO, they were all there. He started the demo with his usual confidence. Atlas represents our new frontier in intelligent billing. My team and I built. Then he clicked the dashboard. The provenance overlay blinked to life. Tiny gray text appeared in the corner of every panel. Authored by T. McLean. Commit 9A73DF. Approved 2023-07-18-2341 UTC. At first, nobody noticed. Then the audit chair squinted. "What's that label?" Evan froze. "That must be a dev artifact." The CFO leaned forward. "Is that showing who actually wrote the code?" The room went quiet. Evan's cursor hovered over the screen like a trapped insect. This isn't relevant to... But it was too late. I was standing outside the glass wall, watching. My name, my real name, was glowing all over his presentation, and for the first time in months, he didn't have words. The boardroom froze for a solid 10 seconds. Then came the sound. That dry, collective throat, clear of executives realizing they've stepped in something they don't understand. Evan tried to recover, clicking frantically through tabs. "Small technical bug," he stammered. "Some sandbox overlay from dev mode." But the CFO wasn't listening. She was reading. Every chart, every data table, every revenue figure had a faint gray line beneath it. Authored by T. McLean. She looked up. "Who's T. McLean?" Evan's mouth opened, then closed. "One of our engineers." "One of?" The CEO leaned forward. "Or the engineer." I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. From where I stood in the hallway, I could see the reflection of Evan's face in the glass. He was sweating. His collar stuck to his neck. After the meeting, the messages started trickling in. A single DM from Maya. "They know." Then one from Alex in sales. "He's furious. Be careful." I didn't have to ask who he was. That night, at 11:43 p.m., Evan pushed a commit directly to production. No approvals. No review. Just a line of code that changed a billing endpoint, the endpoint that powered Atlas's live usage dashboard. Within minutes, the system started misreporting data. Some clients saw 0 usage. Others saw triple. The monitoring bot pinged me first, then the CFO, then half the company. Evan was ready. He sent out an all-hands Slack message before I could type a word. Critical outage caused by unauthorized engineering changes. We're investigating who had access. It was a perfect setup. He wanted me cornered. The rogue developer, the unstable genius who broke his own creation out of pride. I stared at that message for a full minute. My pulse felt like thunder in my ears. Then I opened the logs. Atlas's security layer recorded everything, even admin actions. Every login, every API call, every repo modification. I'd build it that way on purpose because you can't trust memory when politics rewrites history. At 23:43:17, the system logged a commit from user evancompany.com. IP, internal, device, MacBook Pro EK. Action, merge branch, hotfix, overlay disable into main. He had tried to remove the provenance flag permanently. I copied the log, archived it, and sat back. For a long time, I didn't move, just listened to the air conditioning hum above me. Then I opened Slack and typed, rolling back to stable version from yesterday. Fix in progress. 5 minutes later, Atlas was back online. Clients never even noticed. The next morning, I walked into the office expecting a fight. Instead, it was quiet. Too quiet. People looked up when I passed. Not out of pity this time, but out of curiosity. Something had shifted. Evan was in the glassroom again, pacing, phone glued to his ear. HR stood nearby, watching him through the door. At 10:05 a.m., I got an email. Subject line, Board Inquiry, Compliance Review. They wanted to meet. When I entered the room, the CFO was already there. She gestured for me to sit. Tom, she said. First time she'd ever used my first name. We need to confirm a few things. You built Atlas's billing system? Yes. Did you make any unapproved changes to production last night? No. She turned her laptop around. On the screen was the log I'd exported hours earlier. This was sent to me anonymously this morning. Do you know what this is? I looked at it. My own log file, untouched. Yes, I said quietly. That's Atlas's audit trail. I wrote it. The audit chair nodded. Then you also wrote the line that identifies this comet as Evans, correct? Yes. He sat back, folding his hands. Good. Because that file just saved the company. Apparently during the outage, Evan had tried to manipulate billing data to make Atlas appear unstable, a ploy to argue that engineers couldn't manage financial systems responsibly. The idea was to shift Atlas entirely under product oversight, but because of the provenance layer, the same one he'd tried to delete, his actions were now permanently logged. The board called an emergency session. HR drafted a temporary suspension pending investigation. They asked me not to speak publicly. I agreed. When I left the room, the hallway was lined with silence. People whispered but didn't make eye contact. Maya met me by the elevator and slipped me a folded piece of paper. Inside was a single sentence. They're interviewing him now. He looks sick. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. 3 months of sleepless nights, weekends buried in code, and this was how victory looked. Fluorescent lights, dry mouths, and people too afraid to say thank you. That evening, I sat alone in the office kitchen. The building had emptied out. I stared at the vending machine reflection and thought about all the times I'd stayed late fixing someone else's mistakes. I pulled out my laptop one last time, logged into Atlas. In the top right corner of the dashboard was a tiny toggle. Provenance mode, on. I hovered over it. The gray labels shimmered faintly across the interface. My name stamped on every panel, like fingerprints in steel. Then slowly, I turned it off. Not out of forgiveness, not even closure. Just because the truth no longer needed a spotlight. It had already done its job. But before closing the laptop, I made one more change. I opened the repository and renamed the branch. Feature Atlas Ownership. Team Atlas. Then I committed it with a single message. Ownership isn't claimed, it's earned. The next morning, Evan's desk was empty. By Monday, his nameplate was gone. The office smelled like rain and new toner, that weird, sterile mix that lingers after something breaks and no one talks about it. Evan's glass office was empty, chair pushed too neatly under the desk. A few sticky notes clung to his monitor like ghosts. Someone had wiped his Slack presence overnight. User not found. I didn't ask where he went. HR didn't say. But the whispers spread faster than the facts. Suspension pending investigation. Misconduct. Data tampering. In tech, rumors move like electricity. Invisible but burning everything they touch. The board sent a memo that afternoon. Following an internal review, Atlas will continue under engineering leadership. Effective immediately, Thomas McLean is appointed product lead for Atlas Systems, reporting directly to the CFO. I reread that line 3 times. Not acting, not interim, just product lead. When the announcement hit Slack, the reaction was strange. Cautious applause, emoji reactions that disappeared a few seconds later, private DMs from people who had looked away months earlier. Congrats, man. You deserved this? Wish I'd said something sooner. I didn't hold it against them. Everyone plays defense in a place built on hierarchy. That week blurred, meetings with compliance, documentation handoffs, HR forms written in lawyer English. Then, late Friday evening, the CFO called me into her office. She didn't waste time. You saved us, she said. That audit trail you built, if you hadn't logged commit authorship, we'd be explaining falsified billing data to investors right now. She slid a folder across the table. Board approved a retention grant, equity package, salary adjustment, budget for 3 engineers and 1 designer. You'll lead Atlas independently. No intermediaries. For a second, I just stared at it. I'd imagined this. Vindication, control, acknowledgement. But when it finally arrived, it didn't feel cinematic. It felt quiet, heavy. Why me? I asked. She smiled. Because you built the thing that works, and because you documented everything. That night, I left the office long after everyone else. The city outside was dark, wet with summer rain. I stood at the crosswalk and watched my reflection in the glass of the building. Tired eyes, hoodie still wrinkled, backpack, strap half torn. Same guy who'd started Atlas as a side project, except now the name on the product matched the code inside it. When I got home, my inbox was filling with things I didn't expect. Messages from clients, engineers from other departments, even an anonymous note through the internal feedback form. Thank you for proving that the builders still matter. It made me laugh. Builders. That's all I ever wanted to be. 2 weeks later, the board held another meeting, this time to restructure product strategy. Evan wasn't mentioned, but during the wrap-up, the audit chair paused. Before we adjourn, he said, I'd like to formally commend the engineering initiative that led to Atlas. Transparency and integrity like that are the reason this company still has investors. People clapped. It wasn't the fake, polite kind. It sounded real. Afterward, Maya found me by the elevator. You did it, she said softly. No, I said. We did. You sent the deck. Alex sent the recording. The team built the system. I just refused to let them take it. She smiled. Still, feels good, doesn't it? I nodded. Yeah, feels clean. For a long moment, we just stood there, listening to the elevator hum. The office lights reflected off the glass walls, and for once, they didn't look like cages. They looked like transparency. The next few months were quieter. Atlas grew. We launched new clients, added real usage forecasting, stabilized the metering layer. Revenue kept climbing, but it wasn't about that anymore. It was about building something that couldn't be stolen, not because of legal shields or titles, but because it lived in the fingerprints of every person who touched it. Sometimes I'd open the old audit logs just to look at them, not out of ego, but out of gratitude. Proof that truth has a timestamp. One night, around 2 a.m., I logged into Atlas again. Everything was smooth, silent. I scrolled to the bottom of the dashboard and saw the commit message from that last push I made months ago. Ownership isn't claimed, it's earned. I hovered over it, smiled, and added one more line beneath it. Built by those who refuse to disappear. Then I hit save, closed the laptop, and finally, after months of fighting, slept. When I came back Monday morning, the CFO had sent an internal memo. Effective immediately, Atlas will spin off as its own product line. Leadership will remain under the current team. Please extend congratulations to Tom McLean and his staff for setting a new standard for transparency and innovation. The applause this time wasn't hesitant. It filled the office. And for once, there wasn't a single gray label needed to prove who did the work. Everyone already knew